Everyone thought she was just the cleaner's shy daughter, until the CEO mocked her with a challenge no one else could solve. A $5 million tech disaster. A room full of experts. One silent girl who stepped forward and rewrote everything. What happened next left the entire boardroom in stunned silence. Today's story is about a shy teenage girl, overlooked by everyone, until the moment she was dared to do the impossible. What she did next left an entire boardroom stunned. Before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a story that proves brilliance doesn't ask for permission, it demands to be seen. Let's begin. I never planned to step into that building again after what happened with my dad. But my mother, she insisted I come that day. She said she didn't feel well and needed help carrying her mop buckets and supplies up to the 18th floor. That floor wasn't like the others. That floor was where the suits lived. Where the decisions that made or destroyed futures were made in polished glass rooms under harsh white lights. I hated those lights. They reminded me of hospital ceilings. Still, I kept my head down, hoodie up, and followed quietly beside her, just like I used to do as a kid when I waited in the janitor's closet after school. She introduced me to a few people, smiling like she didn't notice the way they glanced at me. Not cruel, exactly, but dismissive, like I was just another mop handle she had wheeled in. One woman in accounting whispered, "Is that your niece?" My mother beamed and said proudly, "That's my daughter, Ava." The woman nodded, said nothing else, and walked off. I didn't need to be told. I'd already been sized up, boxed, and shelved by every passing glance. I wasn't wearing name brand anything. I wasn't polished or loud. I didn't belong. The 18th floor was buzzing that day. Something had broken down. Not just any hardware, the hardware. A prototype worth millions. The company's golden ticket. I overheard fragments. Her system fault, no output from the AI interface, the whole cooling cycle's off. Engineers scrambled like ants after a kicked mound. Men in suits yelled into phones. One of them bumped into me and barked, "Watch it." I apologized and stepped back. No one asked why a teenage girl was standing there. Then he came and Nathan Carrick, the CEO. The man who'd made headlines last year for cutting 50 employees while buying a third Tesla. He had perfect posture, expensive shoes, and a condescending tone that dripped from every syllable like oil from a rusty pipe. He spotted me standing beside the janitor cart and looked confused. "Who's this?" he asked. My mom answered quickly, "My daughter. She's just here to help carry things today, sir." He stared at me a second longer, like I was a stain on the marble. "We don't run daycare centers here." "She's not a child," my mother said, her voice firmer than usual. "She's 16. "Well, that's about 16 years too early to be standing anywhere near that hardware," he scoffed. Someone chuckled behind him. I turned to leave, but that's when the main engineer walked in, pale and sweating. "It's completely dead, sir." The diagnostic tool just froze again. "Nothing's responding." The CEO cursed. Then, like he suddenly remembered I was still there, he turned and snapped, "Why don't we let the janitor's daughter take a crack at it, since no one else can fix the damn thing?" There was laughter. Ugly, echoing laughter. But my mother went still. She looked at me, and her face said don't. But I didn't listen. Not this time. I walked forward. At first, no one said a word. The room seemed to hold its breath. I stepped past the rows of desks, past the project managers, past the scornful smirks. I moved quietly, calmly, the way I used to when fixing my dad's old workshop computers before he passed away. I saw the setup. The primary interface was misaligned with the cooling system. The data was throttled. Nobody had checked the firmware reset. I knelt down and looked under the console. Someone behind me scoffed. "What does she think she's doing, plugging in headphones?" Another voice said, "Let her play. Maybe it'll spark something by accident." I didn't speak. I just pulled out the small toolkit from my mom's cart. She always kept it for light fixture repairs. Within 5 minutes, I'd opened a hidden compartment the engineers had overlooked. I accessed the manual override, rewired a feedback loop, and then, calmly, pushed the power switch. The machine buzzed. The lights came on, and for a full 5 seconds, no one made a sound. Then someone whispered, "No freaking way." Another said, "She rebooted the whole system." But I wasn't looking at them. I was looking at the screen where the AI program blinked green. Fully online. Nathan Carrick took a step forward. How did you?" He looked lost for the first time. Like a man who'd just been passed by a ghost he thought was beneath him. I stood up slowly and wiped my hands on my jeans. I didn't smile. I didn't speak. But in that moment, I wasn't just the cleaner's daughter. I was something else entirely. And they all knew it. Nathan Carrick's jaw moved like he wanted to say something, but his ego wouldn't let the words out. The room was still frozen, executives blinking like mannequins, engineers suddenly very interested in their shoes, and interns clutching clipboards like life jackets. I hadn't even done much, just used basic logic and a little confidence. But to them, what I did was impossible. Because to them, I was impossible. Then Nathan found his voice. How did you know what to look for? He asked, his tone sharper now, as if trying to slice through the humiliation he just swallowed. I shrugged. The cooling system wasn't syncing with the AI core. So I bypassed the temp lock and manually stabilized the flow. That earned a few confused glances. One of the older techs whispered, that shouldn't have worked. We already tried a full bypass. Another muttered, she went in through the auxiliary ports, the ones we didn't even label yet. I caught my mom's face out of the corner of my eye. She looked stunned, but there was a shine in her gaze I hadn't seen in years. Not since Dad's funeral. Like she was proud and terrified and amazed all at once. Nathan walked around the machine like a man who'd just seen his own reflection for the first time and didn't like what stared back. You realize this prototype cost over $5 million in R&D, right? He said. I nodded once. And it would have been useless if you kept ignoring the firmware conflict. That made a few people flinch. Even I surprised myself with how bold it came out. But I didn't care anymore. I was tired of hiding behind mops and staying quiet so others wouldn't feel challenged. Nathan narrowed his eyes. You think you're smarter than my engineers? No, I replied, meeting his gaze. But maybe I'm not afraid to see what they missed. Dead silence again. Then he turned to the lead engineer, a man in his 30s with a nervous twitch in his left hand. Get her to write down exactly what she did. The man hesitated. Sir, she wasn't even authorized to touch the unit. Nathan didn't blink. And yet she fixed it. Do you want to explain that to the board? Or do you want to write the damn report? The engineer nodded quickly and left the room. Just like that, the tension cracked. The crowd started to drift, trying to make themselves busy, pretending they hadn't just witnessed the company's biggest embarrassment being undone by a girl in a thrift store hoodie. Nathan turned back to me. What's your name again? I didn't answer. My mother did. Ava. He nodded slowly, then turned to her. Your daughter's wasted on cleaning shifts. My mom bristled. She was never supposed to be cleaning. That landed harder than any insult could have. He blinked again, then gave a strange little smile, like he'd just thought of something clever and cruel. You know what, he said. Let's test this properly. We have a second unit in our testing vault. Same fault, different configuration. If she can fix that one too, I'll personally fund her scholarship. If not, he trailed off and gave a half shrug. My mother stepped forward. She doesn't owe you anything. But I raised a hand gently. It's okay, Mom. I'll do it. Nathan grinned. Good. Let's go. He didn't offer me a handshake or a thank you. He just turned and walked toward the elevator. I followed. And for the first time, the crowd made room for me. Not because they respected me, but because they didn't know what else to do. That was fine. Respect could come later. Right now, I was just focused on the next challenge. We reached the testing vault, a cold, sterile room with metal walls, glowing blue servers, and a machine twice the size of the last one. This one wasn't just malfunctioning. It was locked down entirely. This one fried its internal logics mid-cycle, Nathan explained. If you really know what you're doing, you'll figure out why. You've got 30 minutes. I looked at the console, the wiring, the diagnostic screen frozen on a boot error. Then I crouched down and stared at the back panel. He watched me for 5 minutes before saying, most of my engineers took 2 days and found nothing. I didn't reply. I pulled off the back cover and started mapping the data flow in my head. Something didn't add up. The energy drain wasn't from overclocking. It was from an artificial limiter rerouting heat to the AI's central loop. Someone had coded a feedback sabotage into it. I looked up. Who wrote the update before it crashed? Nathan paused. Why does that matter? Because your machine didn't break on its own. Someone made it break. His expression shifted. First curiosity, then disbelief, then something close to fear. And that's when I knew I wasn't just fixing a machine anymore. I was about to expose a sabotage buried deep inside this company. And everyone in the building was about to learn that I wasn't just some girl with a knack for hardware. I was the storm they never saw coming. I stayed crouched behind the prototype longer than I expected, my fingers brushing the insulation around the cable runs as I traced every rerouted signal. It wasn't just a malfunction. It was methodical, intentional. Whoever had tampered with this system knew exactly how the AI's logic loops were designed. They hadn't crashed it by accident. They'd redirected the energy drain into a dead-end circuit and triggered a thermal feedback that made it look like hardware failure. Clean. Hidden. Until now. I stood up slowly and wiped the dust from my palms. Nathan stood near the entrance, arms folded, his brow furrowed as he watched me work. The man who minutes ago had ridiculed me was now waiting for my analysis like a freshman hoping for extra credit. I met his eyes and asked plainly, "Who had root access to this unit last?" He flinched slightly at the confidence in my tone. "3 people," he said. "Our senior engineer, our head of software, and—" He paused. "Our product security chief." "Why?" "Because one of them tried to kill this project before it went live." Nathan's lips tightened. "You have proof?" I turned the monitor around. "This subroutine here," I pointed to a cluster of garbled code just beneath the core processing function. "It reroutes system heat into a false memory loop. That forces the AI to stall, corrupt itself, and crash permanently. But this string, I highlighted a section of it, matches the same debug path as the security software you showed me earlier. It's a fingerprint." Nathan stepped forward, jaw clenched. "Are you saying someone on my team tried to sabotage a $5 million project before board review?" "I'm not saying it," I told him. "The system is." He stared at the screen for a long time, silent, calculating. Then, quietly, he tapped the intercom on the wall and said, "Send Harold Chai to the test vault." Now, my pulse ticked up. I didn't know who Harold Chai was, but from the way Nathan said it, neither of us expected him to walk in with clean hands. 5 minutes later, a tall man in a gray suit walked in, holding a tablet. His face was composed, but his steps had hesitation, like a man walking into a courtroom he didn't expect to face today. "You called?" Harold asked. Nathan didn't answer him. He gestured to me. "She found something in the code." Harold's brow twitched. Just slightly, but I caught it. I stepped aside, letting him see the screen. "This line," I told him, "matches the one from the last update pushed through security. It's the same encryption hash, the same delay timer. You tried to make it look like a firmware failure." He stared at the screen without blinking. "That's not mine," he said. "But it came from your login," I replied. "And from this IP." I hit a few keys and brought up the timestamp logs. "Uploaded during your overnight shift, 3 nights ago." After the test team had signed off on the system, Nathan's voice cut in, sharp and cold. "Why?" Harold's eyes flickered. "Because your board already made the decision to outsource the entire AI division," he said quietly. "I built that system. They were going to hand it off to a third-party developer after launch, cut half our team, and sell the tech for profit. I wasn't going to let that happen." Nathan went still. Harold looked at him with bitterness. "You think loyalty grows in a vacuum? We built this from scratch. You made it disposable." Before Nathan could answer, I stepped in. "So you sabotaged your own invention, risked the company's future, because you didn't like the board strategy?" Harold's mouth tightened. "I did what was necessary." I turned to Nathan. "Now you know what kind of team you're really running." The silence in the vault was heavier than the steel plating around us. Nathan stared at me, then at Harold, and back again. "Finally," he said, "you're suspended. Effective immediately. Security will escort you out." Harold didn't argue. He just looked at me once more, his expression not angry, but disappointed, like I'd ruined his final move in a broken game. Then he walked out. When the door closed, Nathan exhaled. He looked at me like I was a puzzle he hadn't even known he was trying to solve. "How old did you say you were again?" 16. He nodded slowly. "You realize what you just uncovered could have cost us the entire division? And if I hadn't," I said, "he would have buried your future with it." He nodded again, slower this time. "You ever considered working here?" I shook my head. "No. I didn't think you'd consider hiring a janitor's daughter." He chuckled, but it sounded hollow. "You're not just a janitor's daughter. You're a quiet genius." I didn't smile at that. I'd been called gifted, exceptional, and a fluke before. None of those words meant much. Not when you still had to ride the bus to a 2-room apartment and scrub cafeteria floors for rent. But what Nathan said next caught me off guard. "I want you to meet the board next week. Show them what you did. Let's talk about a future for you here, officially." I didn't say yes. Not yet. Because deep down, I knew this company had more buried secrets, and I wasn't done uncovering them. Nathan had me escorted, not out, but to the executive suite. The irony didn't escape me. Just hours ago, I'd stood beside a mop bucket on the 18th floor, ignored by everyone with a title. Now I was walking past glass doors and marble hallways with people nodding politely, even forcing smiles. The receptionist asked if I wanted tea. I said no. My hands were still shaking, not from fear, but from everything I hadn't let myself feel until now. Inside the CEO's office, the air was thick with silence and polished power. Nathan motioned for me to sit across from him. I stayed standing. "What's your real background?" he asked, as if fixing two multi-million-dollar machines wasn't enough to earn a seat at the table. "My mom cleans offices," I replied. "My dad was a tech repairman who fixed broken laptops in our garage until he died." He tilted his head slightly. "You don't get that kind of system knowledge from fixing laptops." I said nothing, but he waited, so I gave him a little more. "I got accepted into MIT when I was 15, I said. Deferred my admission. I was supposed to join last spring, but when my dad passed, everything stopped. My mom needed help. Bills piled up. MIT could wait." Nathan leaned back slowly. I could tell he didn't know how to process that. The label he'd put on me, quiet, poor, unqualified, had just shattered. And in its place stood someone who didn't fit the mold he was used to commanding. "Why didn't you tell anyone?" he asked. "Would it have mattered if I did?" I asked back. "People only listen once you've already proven them wrong." He didn't argue. I crossed my arms. "Why are you really asking all this? Is it because I'm smart, or because I embarrassed your whole team in front of you?" He chuckled, genuinely this time. "Both." There was a pause. Then he said, "I want to offer you a position here. Paid internship. Immediate start. You'll report directly to me." I stared at him. "Because of what I did?" He nodded. "Because of what you saw. No one else even came close." I didn't answer right away. My head was buzzing with thoughts. Rent, my mom's long shifts, my dad's old soldering iron still in the drawer at home. But something else was eating at me too. "You said earlier the board was planning to outsource the AI division," I said. "Is that true?" He paused, then nodded slowly. "It was being discussed." "Is that why Harold sabotaged the system?" Nathan's jaw tightened. Harold was brilliant, but reckless. He thought blowing it up would stop the handoff. Would it have? Maybe. Or maybe it would have destroyed our credibility and handed the tech to our competitors for cheap. I thought for a long second, then asked the question that had been building inside me since I saw those error logs. "How many other people here know things are being buried?" His eyes flickered. "Why do you ask?" "Because that hardware was only one problem," I said quietly. "If your engineers didn't catch something that obvious, there's more beneath the surface. I can feel it." He didn't laugh. He didn't smirk. He just nodded. "You might be right." I turned and walked to the window. The city looked different from here. High up, clean, silent. But I remembered what it looked like from ground level too. I remembered the bus fumes, the broken payphones, the billboards screaming things no one on this floor ever had to worry about. Nathan finally spoke again. "Look, Ava, I'm not asking you to spy on anyone. But if you see something, tell me. And if I don't?" I asked. "Then you'll still be the smartest person to walk through this company in years." I left his office with a job offer in my hand, a direct line to the CEO, and a whisper in my head that something bigger was coming. I got home that night and found my mom asleep on the couch, her shoes still on, arms crossed like she didn't trust sleep to last too long. I pulled a blanket over her and sat at the edge of the couch, watching the city lights blinking through our cracked blinds. I could have gone to MIT. I still might. But for now, something told me this place needed me more than any college did. Not because I wanted to fix machines, but because I was finally beginning to understand something deeper. They didn't just underestimate me. They underestimated what I would do next. The next morning, I walked into that building not as a shadow, but as a name. They had already updated the internal bulletin. "Meet Ava, our newest intern, reporting directly to the CEO." My mom saw it first, printed in the email pinned to the bulletin board outside the janitor's locker room. Her eyes welled up before I could even say anything. She just pulled me into a hug, whispered, "Your father would be so proud," and let go before anyone else could see or cry. But not everyone was thrilled. The moment I stepped into the engineering division, silence followed me. Conversation stopped. I started. I was no longer invisible, but I was far from welcome. A few of the engineers gave me tight nods, The kind you offer a problem you hope will go away on its own. Others whispered in corners. They didn't like that I'd fixed what they couldn't. They liked even less that the CEO now called me for updates they used to control. I headed to my desk. Yes, they had given me a desk, though it looked like it had been dragged from storage. No chair at first. No monitor either. Just a blank space. But I didn't complain. I'd built systems on worse. Then came her, Samantha Baird, senior systems architect, leader of the team whose project I'd accidentally hijacked. She walked up, arms folded, flawless in her tailored blouse and sharp heels. Her expression was unreadable. "So," she said, voice smooth, "you're the new golden child." I looked up. "Just here to work." She smirked. "We've had interns before. They usually run errands, fetch coffee. You think patching one machine makes you special?" "No," I said calmly. "But exposing sabotage probably does." Her eyes narrowed. "You know, Harold trained half this team. A lot of people respected him, and a lot of people were nearly left jobless because of him." I replied, not flinching. She studied me for a moment. Then she leaned in and said quietly, "This place chews up kids like you. You'll be gone before the paint dries on your nameplate." I didn't reply. I just turned back to my blank desk and opened my notebook. A few hours later, I got an email from Nathan's office. "Boardroom presentation, 2 p.m. Your prototype report will lead the session." No warning. No time to rehearse. Just a subject line that might as well have read sink or swim. I walked in at 1:59. 12 executives sat around a glass table, folders open, coffee steaming. Most were middle-aged men with skeptical eyes. A few women nodded politely as I entered, but no one smiled. Nathan was at the head of the table. He gestured. "Everyone, this is Ava. She'll walk us through the root cause of the prototype failure and the solution." I stepped forward, heart thudding, and plugged in the slides I prepared that morning. As I walked them through the sabotage, how it was buried, how it could have derailed the entire AI product, I felt their attention sharpen. Not because of who I was, but because of what I knew. Facts carry weight, even when the person delivering them wears thrift shoes and borrowed confidence. When I finished, the room stayed quiet for a beat. Then one of the directors asked, "How old are you?" 16. Another murmured, "Who taught you to see system patterns like that?" "My dad," I said. Before he passed, he used to say that computers are just like people. They talk all the time. You just have to listen to what's not being said. That made someone in the corner scribble something on a notepad. I didn't care what. The vote to reinstate the project passed unanimously. I was dismissed after that. But as I stepped out, I heard one of the board members say to Nathan, "Keep her close." I headed back to the office and found something new waiting at my desk. A chair, a monitor, a fresh company badge, and a note, unsigned, "You're not invisible anymore." But the biggest shock came the next morning. Samantha Baird walked in, stopped at my desk, and held out a flash drive. "I reviewed your analysis," she said, voice more even this time. "You were right. About everything. I missed the routing sequence. And I owe you an apology." I blinked. "Really?" She nodded. "Doesn't mean I like you. But I respect accuracy. This team runs on trust. So, consider this a start." I took the flash drive. Maybe this place would never be warm. But if even the coldest corners were thawing, then I was making progress. And I was just getting started. 3 weeks later, I wasn't just the girl who had fixed the impossible machine. I was leading a team. It started with the side project no one wanted, an experimental AI shell with faulty outputs that had been shelved for months. Nathan tossed it to me like a test, saying, "If you want to prove you're more than a fluke, let's see what you can do with this." I worked through nights, tracing bad logic chains, rewriting corrupted code. I borrowed old notebooks from my dad's workshop, flipped through his sketches, and used what I learned growing up under his desk to rebuild the entire framework. One morning, I uploaded the new version into the company's sandbox system. It didn't just work. It exceeded every benchmark. Word spread fast. People who once rolled their eyes when I walked into the lab now asked to sit in on my tests. Samantha even brought coffee once, not to belittle me, but just to sit quietly and watch. She didn't say much that day, but when the prototype ran flawlessly and logged 99.8% accuracy, she leaned in and said, "That's the cleanest cycle I've ever seen." And I've seen a lot. Nathan started pulling me into meetings with investors. He'd introduce me as our youngest systems architect. At first, I thought he was exaggerating. Then he updated my title officially. Junior Architect, Special Innovations Division. I hadn't even graduated high school. My mom stopped working nights. Nathan offered her a position as head of facilities, with benefits and a team of her own. I'd never seen her cry in public before, but when she got her new badge, she hugged it like it was the first diploma she'd ever earned. The same office that once laughed at the cleaner's daughter now looked to her with quiet respect. She walked taller, smiled easier. Every now and then, I'd hear whispers from people who didn't know I was listening. She's Ava's mom. And that was enough to make her whole day. One afternoon, an intern knocked on my door. Yes, I had an office now, and nervously asked if I could explain a system bug to her. Her name was Keisha. She reminded me of myself. Small, quiet, sharp-eyed. As I showed her the system logs and how to read what the machine wasn't saying, I realized something had shifted. I wasn't just learning anymore. I was teaching, and the strangest thing was, people were listening. The board invited me to present at the annual Tech Summit. I stood under spotlights in a room filled with professionals twice my age, delivering insights from a girl they'd never even seen coming. When I finished, the applause wasn't polite, it was thunderous. After the summit, Nathan took me aside and said, "You've rewritten this company's future, Ava." I didn't say anything, because deep down, I knew I had rewritten more than just code. I had rewritten what people thought possible when you come from nowhere. I had gone from mockery to mentorship, from silence to center stage, from cleaning floors to commanding attention. I still hadn't decided if I would go to MIT. They'd reinstated my offer, this time with a full scholarship. But for now, I stayed where I was, building, guiding, proving every single day that brilliance doesn't need a perfect background. It just needs a chance to be seen. You've just heard the story of a young girl who turned mockery into mastery and silence into leadership. If Ava's journey reminded you that greatness can come from anywhere, then this channel is for you. I've got many more stories of underdogs rising, secrets unfolding, and quiet strength turning tides. Subscribe now and turn on notifications so you never miss a story that might just change how you see the world.